welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show, the show where we talk about all the crazy stupid stuff that people do in marketing and how not to do crazy stupid stuff. It's really not that complex. Although here's the thing about crazy stupid marketing, the tricky bit is that most of the time we don't realize that we're doing it. And so this is why this show exists, to help us understand what might be some of the things that make us feel like we're doing something crazy, aka doing the same things over and over, yet still expecting different results, and or stupid, which my 7-year-old continues to tell me is a swear word. But in the concept of this show, we are talking about things you're doing just because someone else told you that you should, but you don't have a good reason for doing it yourself. This is the place where we get into the conversations to break that down so we can see what we're doing in those arenas and we don't have to keep doing it. We can do more meaningful, awesome things with our marketing time, effort, and dollars. And today we're talking about what might seem like a very big umbrella conversation, which we love on the show, the creative advantage. And we're going to get into what we're going to define that as for the purpose of the show, because as a marketing show, people who are watching probably have their own definition of what creative means, but we're going to make sure we're all on the same page in terms of that. So I would highly encourage, if you are joining us live and you have your own thoughts on what creative means or what the creative advantage means, please feel free to pop it in the comments. We would love to see all of the different perspectives as we reframe it for the purpose of this conversation today. But this is an opportunity for all of us to come together and explore what could the advantages be that are related to being creative, or is that what we're even talking about? We're gonna jump into it. Okay. So for those of you who are fans of the show, you might recognize Dr. Karen. Dr. Karen is back for a repeat appearance. But we're very excited to have her back. So Dr. Karen, since you've been on the show before, welcome back. But there's lots of people who are new to the show, probably since you were last here. So if you want to give everybody a kind of high-level overview of who you are and what you're all about, and then we're going to jump into what is our definition of the creative advantage for the point of our episode today.
Thank you so much, Tracy, and it's really great to be back with you again for another exciting episode. And as you mentioned, I'm Dr. Karen Wilson Starks. I'm the president and CEO of Leadership Incorporated, and we are an executive leadership development consulting firm. We've been in business this year for 30 years now, and we are also celebrating our 500th podcast episode for the Voice of Leadership. So this year's our Fab 500 year. And I usually work with corporate executives in global for-profit organizations that are based in the United States. And I'm mostly working with that top-tier leadership about how to effectively lead the organization, align the executive team as they lead, create positive, profitable, and productive cultures, and lead change, go through whatever challenges and difficulties are necessary. And lately, because I've been doing this for so long, I'm now starting to come alongside people who are going into the CEO role and helping them to get a running start as they begin and to be more effective.
Oh, this is so awesome. So really, we're talking about like high-level leadership, which, yes, folks, is relevant in marketing as well. We have high-level marketing leaders. Also, we have people who work in marketing who have the desire to be high-level leaders, and as well as the potential. So, Dr. Karen, as we jump into this like big concept of the creative advantage today, how do you normally go about framing a creative advantage in the work that you do?
Probably what might be easiest for people is for me to make the contrast between what I call creative advantage and what they already know about as competitive advantage. So let me start there, because competitive advantage is very often you see your neighbor on the corner, they've opened up a restaurant, they're selling hamburgers or whatever, and they're doing it in a particular way, and you're trying to capture some of their market share and do better than they're doing. So you go over, see what they're doing, and then you start trying to either do it better, copycat it, or do something that maybe is just a little tweak of difference. Now, with competitive advantage, you might win if you end up doing it better than the person who's already doing it. However, keep in mind, they might be doing what they're doing because they are best suited to do it. So at best, you are second to the market, second place, maybe a knockoff, a copycat, and maybe not as good as the original people. And so I think that people set themselves up for unnecessary failure by trying to be competitive with someone else as opposed to doing the work of discovering what is your creative advantage.
Mm.
What is it that you can do better than anyone else in the marketplace? And we can unpack that more, but in essence, that's the difference.
Yeah. And I mean, as a huge fan of authenticity, this is something that resonates just very well with me. And I've seen more and more because it's so easy now for people to share what they're doing. We have more transparency into pricing structures because people are putting them on their websites and all of these different types of things. So it's actually become very, very easy to copycat. And a lot of times in marketing in particular, we forget that marketing is not just promotion, folks. That's one of the 4 P's of marketing. But we're also talking about product. We are also talking about price. And in these types of arenas, it is so common for people to just copy a competitor's pricing strategy or product development strategy, right? We're just going to develop the most features. We're not more features than anybody else. Yeah, you can. But is that what you would do? Is that why you came to play this game in the first place? And this is something I always find, it's one of those things that definitely falls into crazy stupid because it's so easy to copy. And so we're like, oh, that just forget that, right? Like, this is how people are used to buying it in our industry, so we'll just copy that. People are used to receiving proposals, so we'll just do proposals, right? Like that is safe. But that is very much competitive mirroring. I wouldn't even say competitive advantage, right? Because, well, it really is just mirroring. And then what are we trying to create an advantage upon? And so if we're going to say, okay, yeah, great, we believe in this idea of the creative advantage as well, what are some of the things you see that help people get out of this mindset that's like really focused on competitive advantage and shift over into the idea of a creative advantage?
Yeah, that's a great question. And by the way, Tracy, I really love the fact that you aligned what I'm talking about with your whole concept of authenticity because they really are related. So let me say a little bit about what you're not wanting to do because you listed a bunch of things, one of which was compete on price.
Mm.
When you set up the whole notion of competition on price, then the only way you succeed, in essence, is to be the low cost leader. And what you really want to do in business, because my clients want to be profitable, they want to be successful. In order to succeed in business, you really have to add value. And it's the value that you're bringing and adding that's more important than even the pricing. Because if you've got the right value and people know that they're going to get that and it's what they want, price becomes quite secondary in that case. And you're not offering a commodity, so you're offering something that is distinctive and different. And that's the key. You want to be distinctive. So let me name a few things that go into creative advantage. First, you have to be clear about what your strengths are, what your abilities and skills are in the marketplace, in the industry where you serve. And if you don't fully understand that and know that, take some time internally to have the conversations to brainstorm, well, what are our strengths? What makes us really special? What makes people attracted to us? Why are they getting good results because of working with us? So you have some specific strengths. So that's one pillar that goes into it. Another pillar is understanding what that marketplace that you serve, what they need. And understanding what they need, it takes a lot of observation. You're paying attention to your clients. What are they doing well at right now? Where are they suffering? Where are they maybe falling down a little bit and need some support, need some help. What does the industry say right now? What's the news saying? What's going on out there in the world? New challenges that are affecting our clients. And then thirdly, when you figure out what do they need, what do you have that's unique, how can you combine those two to add value that other people are not adding in the way that you're adding? So that is creative advantage when you can bring all that together and the value is such that your clients want to purchase it. It's not enough just to be unique and different and nobody cares, nobody wants it, they're not willing to buy it, they're not willing to pay the price for it. All three of those things have to be in there. You have the ability, they want it, and they're willing to pay for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so again, like all of this makes very logical sense, right? And there's probably lots of people who are listening to me and like, yep, get it. What are some of the challenges you see in people actually executing? Like, I would put this into like kind of two categories. So first of all, defining that real creative advantage. And then secondly, using that creative advantage to build your leadership team, to create a marketing program, to build out your product, and actually using that creative advantage to make business decisions. So let's start with what, if we're all like, yeah, it makes sense, let's go do creative advantage, right? What is stopping people from going through that exercise?
Well, I think that's just it. They don't go through an exercise. One of the things they do is that they assume that they already know. They assume that they understand the client's journey, what the client is going through, without really stopping to ask questions, to investigate, to look under the hood, if you will. And I think that they forget sometimes that you can't come up with this just by being in the executive boardroom. There are people in your organization who are working on the front lines with the actual clients. They see things every day. And so you have to be able to take a look at the vantage point of multiple people in your company. What are they seeing? What are they hearing? What are the conversations that they're having with clients? What are they observing when they do site visits at the client location? Because they're going to see some things that you, if you're in the executive office, you might not even see because you may not be out there in quite the same way. Although you will see things also in the executive office. So it's a matter of having the tentacles out in multiple places and then having the conversations internally where you're bringing these insights together and then saying, okay, oh, what can we do with this? This is actually a tapestry. It's a landscape that we need to put together because it's going to create a roadmap that we might not see at the moment. Although when we have dialogue with each other, a roadmap is going to emerge from all of these different windows on what's going on out there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I can see how there is like complexity in doing that once you have like these business units and your company is of a certain size, but that you also have a great access to the information should you lean into that information. How did you extrapolate that to people who are in like smaller businesses or people who are like trying to put together a collaboration for the first time, and you maybe have like 5 people who have this really great idea, right? And we're gonna try and develop like explore what is our creative advantage here, but we don't necessarily have like a product market fit per se. Is this also something that can be useful in that part of the journey, or would you say it's more so helpful once you have all that data?
Well, you don't want to get too far ahead of the population that you're serving. So if you're a small business, a lot of your conversations may be more external than they are internal. When you're a big company, you're going to have conversations internal and external, and you have enough people internally who are meeting with and seeing the client from different vantage points. Now, if you're small, maybe the few of you are very aware of the client and you have access points. Let's say it's 5 of you with the client, or maybe it's only 1 or 2 who are really speaking with the client. So what you have to understand is, what do I need to ask the client? What do I need to see and observe in the client to understand what our opportunity is? And so when you get client focused and you say, okay, we're helping you with this right now, and this is the value that we're bringing. Now that we're bringing you this value, what's been the benefit so far? How is it advancing what it is that you're trying to do? And what else now are you struggling with? And maybe that's not being addressed. What are you finding challenging in the marketplace? What do you wish that you were able to accomplish, but you don't have a resource for that right now? They might give you five things. Maybe only one or two of them are relevant to the work you do, the skills and talents that you bring, and then you go deeper on those to find out, how can you serve this client even better because of this other need that they've revealed? So again, you don't try to guess, because you probably will guess wrong. I mean, you can have some hypotheses that you therefore go and explore and you talk to them about, but you want to be in a listening mode and also a curiosity mode, so that you really hear and you really understand what the client is, what their dilemma is, and what they're facing.
Yeah, I feel like that's the number one thing. The number one place I see customer discovery fail is that people use it as an opportunity to convince a client that they need the services that I have built, instead of completely coming at it from that pure curiosity. Like, I have my hypotheses, right? We are humans, we come up with hypotheses. But I am, one of the greatest things I read once was that unless you've created the space for your hypothesis to be untrue, you can't figure out if it is true. So you have to create enough space to prove your hypothesis wrong. If you're only asking questions that are in alignment with proving your hypothesis to be true, then you're not covering all of your bases and you won't know if your hypothesis is false. So I think that, again, when we're coming at that really from a, let me get curious, like, this is a huge gap we're seeing in the market, and this is why we think that a solution in this arena might work really well. But again, if I see it but nobody wants to buy it, right, that does not make a market. So let's go out and explore.
And even if what you've observed and identified is a big deal in the marketplace, it may not be for that particular client. And so you have to listen to them for what they're dealing with. And so I think, yes, that curiosity is important, and not allowing the preconceived notions to, I'll say, hijack you into what I call advocacy mode. And when you're in advocacy mode, you're pushing for a solution that you've already put together.
Right.
When you're in creative advantage, what you're looking for is, you're saying, I have building blocks. I have these building blocks over here, my skills, my talents, my abilities, my gifts. And my client here is sharing with me what their frustrations and issues are, what they're trying to accomplish, and what's been difficult for them. I may mix my resources together in a very unique and different way. Maybe I've never used them in the way that I'm going to use them now that I understand what my client is sharing with me. And they may never have seen me approach them in this way. That's creative advantage, because I am willing to mix it up in a way that truly adds value and is an advantage for my client, not just what I've already created and put on the shelf.
Oh, okay, I'd love to dive into this because I think there's a lot of people, especially from a marketing point of view, who are trying to like productize. I mean, I feel like that happens more so with products, but I feel like it's happening more and more with services as well. That we're like a service company, but we're trying to productize our offering to say this is the one. These are the pair of shoes that we sell, and we think that makes it easier for our clients because we're like, okay, well, if our clients need shoes, then I'm going to tell them I have shoes. But like, clients don't just need shoes. Some people want heels. Some people want running shoes. Some people need steel toe boots, right? Like, there's the whole foray of things that you might have even in terms of shoes. But we get like so fixated on like, I gotta have a thing to like show the people this is my system or this is my what have you. So if we were gonna flip that and come at it from the perspective of creative advantage, or like quote unquote promoting our creative advantage instead of a product per se, what might that look like in terms of a story or a narrative?
Well, we would talk a little bit more, not so much about what we have that's on the shelf, more about how we work with clients. The process we might emphasize a little bit more so that they know that they're getting a solution that really is going to be useful for them and that fits for them. I think the productization approach to services makes sense. Let's say if over and over again you've had hundreds of people come to you for the exact same issue and they need pretty much the exact same solution, and you don't always want to reinvent the wheel every time they come because you've got that going on. Well, you can create a productized service for this kind of issue that's repetitive, that's high volume, and that comes regularly. And then this gives you more margin to be available to create the customized pieces for those who need the customized pieces. So it's not necessarily either or. Some businesses don't even have anything that would fit into the productized side of it because they're not seeing that. Others are more fully on the custom side. However, your process is what the client might find valuable because they're going to learn something along the way. You're going to ask them profound questions so that they even learn about themselves and who they are and what they need. And it's going to be enlightening whether they work for you or not. So you're going to add value either way.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is interesting because one of the things I've actually been exploring this for myself, and one of the things I often ask my clients is, what can you guarantee? And a lot of times when you're in a service capacity, especially in like a consulting or advising or coaching capacity, is that I can't guarantee you results because you have to do things, right? So I can advise, I can give good strategy, I can do a lot of that, but if you're not going to execute it, then like I can't guarantee that you're going to have results. But what can I guarantee? And one of the things that like came up personally for me is that I can guarantee that I will ask you a question that no one else has asked you.
Exactly.
Because unless you've had me asking you questions all along, then I have my unique perspective. I have my unique way of combining information, and I can guarantee that I will ask different questions, which means you will have different insight. What you do with that different insight, again, we can talk about it, but like I can guarantee that. And if you are caught in a process that is like repetitive, not generating the results that you're looking for, having somebody ask you questions that no one's asked you before can kick you out of that. Okay. And again, if you have the habits and you don't want to get used to being kicked out of that, then you can very easily fall back into that. Again, like I don't decide. I've had clients who are like, nope, I don't like being kicked out of this. I'm just going to go back into my pattern. I'm like, you know what? Do you, man? If you want to come back later, we can talk about it again. But this is something that I can guarantee. But it's also something that people can be like, oh, wow. Like, yeah, I've worked with a lot of marketers or a lot of consultants who just say the same thing as everybody else. And what everybody else is doing hasn't been working for me. So maybe what I need is somebody who's going to ask me different stuff so I can get out of that habit. Then like I can guarantee that. And you're also then showing me from a client point of view that you're the type of client that I can actually work with because you're opting in to that. But you can only opt into it if I offer it to you from a narrative point of view. And if what I'm offering you is get a new marketing strategy, you're only going to buy that if you think you need a new marketing strategy. And then you're also going to expect me to deliver something that I don't know is going to work. And then what? Then we get like really caught in like, I didn't meet people's expectations. That hurts my reputation. which like directly ties to your creative advantage and your belief in whether or not you have a creative advantage. So downward spiral from there. But I think that is a worthwhile activity for people to go through and say, like, what can you guarantee? And if it's in alignment with your creative advantage, you already know you're going to show up and do it that way. That's your how, right? You're going to do it like that. So why wouldn't you tell people you're going to do it like that?
Well, and I think that people are starved in many respects for these deeper conversations, which they don't always get to have with other people. And especially if someone is just focused on selling something, let's say, that's off the shelf or that already exists, that's the world that they're in. But people really do respect having exposure to different perspectives. One of the things my clients say is the reason we have you on board is because you help us think about what we never thought about, what we need to think about, but we hadn't been thinking about. You bring a new lens, you bring a new perspective on things, you ask us good questions, all of this, which then facilitates the client's ability to actually take their own thinking to the next level, because the creative advantage is a co-creation discovery process. You're doing it together. And that's what makes it valuable, because as the consultant, you're bringing your talents, your unique skills and abilities, and the client has theirs. And you're leveraging the advantage of both to come up with, and Tracy, I say this all the time, what I always call the third solution, which is what neither one of you would have thought about on your own. And it's exciting for a client when that door gets unlocked and they think of something that they have never thought of before, and they can see how it moves the needle in their business.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things I love about this too is because I think a lot of times we can assume that a creative advantage is stuff like, if we're not saying this is a tangible result, right? That's too soft, that there's nothing that can like connect to that. But we're talking about getting business results. We are talking about how do we use a creative advantage that we have as a business to get results for our clients, which by default gets results for us. We're not just talking about the say like, oh, we make beautiful pink pictures. Like, no, that doesn't help anybody like get a business result. And it doesn't help us get a business result. But this is really about how do we, you've used the word quite a few times, create value for people. And when you create value for people, you create a possible value exchange, which now says someone can pay me money to create this value for them. But that only makes sense. Some people will see that value and some people won't see that value. Our individual value as an individual or as a business is not for everybody at all times. Not everybody's ready for a specific conversation or a specific transformation or the specific product even. But when we are out in the market and we believe in that confidence, we believe in that advantage, and we have confidence in that advantage, then we also allow ourselves to talk about it a little bit more freely than also having like a scripted pitch per se.
Well, and I think sometimes people get inspired to look at this because what they have been doing all along is not working as well. Right. And so when whatever they've been doing, maybe their client is like, oh, ho hum, I'm not really interested in that. Or maybe they're going down the street to the competitor, if you will. You may not be on the right path or the right track. I find clients, I would say, motivation to listen increases if, in fact, they are not getting the results that they would like to have from doing it the old way. Right. And so if you are bringing in all the revenue you want to bring in, doing it whatever way you're doing, and it's working for your client, you may not see a need to do anything differently. Right. But when things change, if things change, when things change, and you find that what you're doing is not as effective, now you might say, okay, what else can I do? What else can I look at besides what I've already been doing so I can have even better results?
Yeah. And I think this is really interesting too, because I say this all the time to my clients is like, you don't decide if your client wants better results or not, right? Like they decide and then they go to market to find out something that they think can get better results. And there's lots of different things in marketing in particular, right? There's lots of different people out there telling you lots of different things about how you can get better results in marketing. Some of them are true, some of them are not true, but more importantly, there's things that are either aligned with you or not aligned with you. So now if I'm out in the market and I'm like, oh, my marketing is not performing, I got to go find out like what else I could be doing here. And then I'm over here being like, well, have you thought about your creative advantage? And people are like, oh, no, I've never thought about that. Like, tell me more about that. And then you start talking about it and like, yes, like all of this makes sense, but not because I, as a marketer, are convincing them that it makes sense. It's because to some degree, their evidence that they have coming into their reason why something is not working is in alignment with my experience. And so then we share it and we're like, oh yeah, we are on the same page. This is great. Then we can go and figure out what we can possibly do together. But there's so, I mean, it's interesting because even as I say it, right, like there's the space you have to be comfortable creating in that conversation, I think is against what a lot of people would be looking at from a like tangible funnel point of view. And so like there's a lot of people from a sales perspective who are like, we make the pitch and then it goes to this and then it goes to proposal and then and there's this like very specific sales funnel that we're trying to hit, and marketing falls into that category sometimes too. But like very rarely do those processes include like explore this idea with your client. Right? Mm-hmm. It's like pitch a solution, and we get caught up in this context of like, I have to solve your problem, but you don't have to solve your problem. I have to solve your problem. But really, I would say like a lot of times, so real solutions come from the co-creation, the third solution, as you mentioned. But if we're not making space for that in our marketing, in our sales, in our conversations in general, then we continue to play into the, you have a problem, you tell me what it is because you really know what it is, which most times isn't true. And then I fix it for you, and I don't really know how to fix it for you. I might have fixed it for someone else before, but someone else isn't you. And so like, I might have sold you that I know how to do that because I did it over there. But if you are a completely different mindset animal, then it's probably not going to work the same. So when we talk about this concept of creative advantage, like, I guess my question is, how much of it is you and how much of it is potential clients? Because I would also say there's a lot of people in this arena who are like, oh, I just got to find out what the client wants and then give the client what the client wants. Maybe they know, maybe they don't, but how much of that is aligned with me, I don't even know. So anyway, I'd love to just like explore thoughts in that arena.
Yes, I think you're onto something really important because it's truly a partnership between the provider and the client, let's say. And clients often think they know what their problem is. They often think they know what the solution is. And frequently they don't know either one. And through the discovery process, we're able to show some pictures. So I can imagine creating a photo album that says, oh my God, I thought the problem was over here. But I see now that there are contributions A, B, and C on this side that I never thought about. And if you don't have the right problem identified, the solution is inevitably not going to be the right solution. It's not going to fit. So the time that it takes to do that exploration up front, you are doing several things. You are helping the client get to a real issue, And usually it's a constellation of issues that are related, which is really a bigger solution that they truly need in order to address the problem, if you will. And if you only go in with that narrow little sliver, you're going to maybe fix that, but it does not fix that system issue and it doesn't last long. So
Right.
you want something that is really a linchpin, a lever for bigger change in the whole system, such that when you put that in place, now you've got something robust that's going to last for a while until some other big changes come along when you need to go in and tweak something else or shift something. But they should get a lot of mileage from what you do, not just have it be something valuable for a day.
Mm. I think this is a really interesting concept too, because I feel like, especially in our age of AI, a lot of things are falling into how can I fix this quickly? Right? Um, and systemic issues, sorry, friends, don't get fixed quickly. And sometimes a quick fix, a band-aid fix, actually makes it worse in the long term than actually addressing like a linchpin scenario. But I think a lot of times this is also, to me, this comes back to one, the confidence in your creative advantage again, right? Being like, I know that this is what is going to move the needle here, and I can give the client what they're asking for, which is this, knowing that it's not going to move the needle. Or I can say, like, hey, let's explore that. Because if that is really a symptom that you're trying to resolve, that is great. And what else is coming into play there? But this is not root cause, right? And can we change the root cause with one little thing? Usually not. But this is also, again, an opportunity for us to like double down on the fact that I, as a solution provider, am here for you to get mileage out of whatever solution that we are creating here together. And if you don't want mileage, that's fine, right? If you want to put $4 of gas in your car just so you can make it home, then that's fine. That's your decision. That's what you've decided is right for you. That's what's right. Okay, good. And putting $4 in your car is going to get you home, and it's not going to get you any farther. So as long as you can like very confidently stand there and say, I don't want to go any farther than that, then good, great, good strategy for you. However, if you want to go to the other side of town tomorrow for the coffee date you're supposed to go on, then perhaps you want to explore something that gives you a little more mileage. And this is where we also like, you were talking about how clients learn along with you, right, along the
Yeah.
process. And
Mhm.
this is how we get to help. Let's take people with us, shall we? Instead of just saying like, either you have this problem today or you don't have this problem today. And if you don't have this problem today, then I'm not going to talk to you today.
Exactly. It's
Which
just
I've
not
had
that
lots of people say
discreet.
to me.
Yeah, it's just not that discreet. And you
Right.
also have to think about what kind of a consultant do you want to be.
Mm,
So, for example, I have run into some prospective clients who really only wanted the 4 gallons to get, you know, 4 gallons worth of mileage.
right.
And they may not be the best client for me because when they go 4 miles, then what they're going to say is, "Oh, I really wanted to go farther than that, and you
Right.
didn't help me, and this didn't work," and so on and so forth. So we have to help them understand that what they really are wanting in the big picture, which means we have to listen long enough to discover that and help them discover it. They're going to ultimately be frustrated with the $4 worth of gas that they just put in the vehicle. And
Mm,
they might not know that up front, or they may not have considered it. So the conversation is important. So as a consultant, you can make a couple of different decisions. You can make several decisions, but two obvious ones. One, you can say, okay, I'll tell you what. Let's put the 4 gallons in and let's see where that takes you. And the ride could be so profound for them that now that's what inspires them to go the rest of the journey. Because up front, you're telling them this is not going to get you to the destination, but it will get you started in the right direction. So you have to frame it in a certain way.
Mhm.
Or sometimes I run into clients, their motivation is not for really making a productive change that improves the organization. And so that 4-gallon solution is all they're ever going to want.
Right.
And that would be maybe kind of boring for me because my company's called Trans Leadership. We're into leadership transformation. And that's not going to transform the company. It's not going to transform the way you do business. It's not going to transform life for the clients that you serve. But
Right.
some people just want to do in the military what we used to call window dressing.
Mm.
I have checked the box. We have done that 4-gallon thing, so we're good. And in reality, they're not. I mean, they have not really addressed the underlying issue or problem whatsoever. So sometimes that's something I'll say no to if, in fact, their perspective is such that I know that I'm not going to really truly be able to help because they don't want transformation.
Mm. I I think this is the thing too. Again, as a business owner, service provider, consultant, right, salesperson, we also have to be ready to say no to, like, this is our creative advantage. This is what we do here. This is how we help, right? If you are not interested in that, then, like, again, not everyone is our ideal client. And
Exactly.
and you can help them, but you can also get caught up helping a whole bunch of people who only want 4 gallons of gas. And then you're going to need to get a lot of those clients for teeny tiny projects, and you have to chase them because they don't really believe in the solution that you have. And then, like, all of that just sounds like a lot of work. I would like to also, like, and to extrapolate this a little further into some of the companies that might be watching that are maybe like a B2B type of company, or maybe even a product based tech company where you're saying, like, okay, well, like, now I have a, like, pretty well defined product. How do I go about exploring my creative advantage, and maybe speaking about my creative advantage instead of speaking about the features of my product? Because specifically in B2B tech, it has become very, this is the competitor mirroring piece, right? That we will just promote our products and say, like, I have these features, these guys don't have these features, so you want these features, and so you want my product. How would you go about just helping someone who is interested in exploring, maybe quote unquote competing a different way, at using their creative advantage in that type of industry as well?
Well, it might be useful to plant some seeds. So let's say I'm working with you, Tracy, and I have this product that you have some interest in. Let's say it's a leadership training course or something, which I don't really do, but let's say there is such a thing. And then you say, and then, yes, we want to do that leadership training in our organization. And I'm establishing with you why you want to do it, what you think is going to be the result and the benefit. And then I talk to you about what it's going to provide for you because it does have value. It has a value. So you and I will talk about that value. And then I might say to you, Tracy, there is a bigger picture here that you might want to take a look at. Um, how willing are you to just engage a conversation about what that bigger picture might look like?
Mm, I
And then,
love that.
and then you might get curious, and I might say, because I see that the reason you want to do this training program is because these people are not on the same page and they're having communication issues and so on and so forth. If you do a training program, you will introduce them to the concepts of dialogue, communication. You'll introduce them to some conflict resolution strategies. And then they still have to live day to day in the organization and implement these. And so, how will we help them to use the training program long term? How will you actually shift your corporate culture once we finish the training program?
Mm.
So I'm going to just get you thinking about, do I want a training program or am I really going for a culture transformation here that we don't have yet?
Mhm. And I think this is like, I love that example because commonly when businesses in particular are looking at products, they are looking at it to solve a problem. And I'm going to use an example that I see all the time. So CRM systems. Somebody has a CRM system where they're tracking leads or want to track leads and it's not working for them. And so they think that what they need is to find a different system. The system didn't work, so I need to go find a different system. This is where we get into the conversations about the features. But in my experience, which at this point is like 20 years of CRM implementations, okay, that's not generally where the problem lies. Where the problem lies is in how you are using the system. And so you can replace the system and then 3 years later replace the system and then 3 years later replace the system, because in 3 years there's going to be a whole bunch more companies who have created the new version of CRM systems. So you can do that. But is that really what you want to do? Is that really the problem? And I think too, I'm going to call this out specifically in marketing because I do think that there are solution providers who fall into the category of, I know how to do CRM implementations, so I'm just going to sell people CRM implementations. And when they think they need a CRM implementation, I'm going to tell them, yes, they do, and I'm going to do that for them, and this is how much it costs. And then there are what I consider the actual solution providers who are like, here's why that might not serve you in the way you think it's going to serve you. And that doesn't mean you can't end up going down that path, but let's look at all the facts so that we can actually get you the right solution. And then again, like, I think that speaks very clearly to a difference in the creative advantage, because then one person is saying like, this is my how. I have a discovery process. I'm going to help you figure out what's actually broken, because I know that so many times we think it's this because that's the symptom we're seeing, but like, this isn't going to stop your stuffy nose. Right?
Well, this is a good example because I know when I work with companies, particularly manufacturing companies, and we're looking at the supply chain side of things, there are very robust systems that can be put in place to manage all of those processes in the plant and everything else they have to do. And often when it's not working, they think they need more robust systems to put into place. What I've discovered is that 9 times out of 10, they don't really understand what they have, number one. Number two, they don't know how to use it. Number three, people haven't been trained on how to use it. So you don't know if you need a new system or if you need to know how to implement the one that you have. And so it's getting a new system is, and these systems are extremely expensive in, supply chain kind of work. And so, and sometimes when they've been purchased, they hadn't thought ahead of time how those systems will integrate with what they already have.
Right.
And what they already have is already in bits and pieces that they have kind of cobbled together over, 20, 30 years of business. And they're doing a lot of things by hand and things that are taking forever. And not all of it does integrate with the new thing. Or even if it does, they don't know how it integrates with the new thing. So, I mean, they think they need a new system, but in fact, they may need really deep training on what they have and to be able to leverage that. And some of their workers that have been there for 20 years may not understand it, may not want to learn it. I mean, you've got a lot of resistances and other things that are going on. So you really do have to unpack that so that the client is not wasting money buying another system that no one has training on and that no one uses.
And this happens, so often, unfortunately, because people do think that the solution is just to get something new. But you're going to use that tool the same way you used your tool before. And if it didn't work before, probably not going to work in the future. I want to just quickly get to this question that Peter has in the comments here. I think it's a rhetorical question, but we'll bring it into the conversation anyway. How many businesses wait until the spam hits the fan before exploring for their creative advantage? again, I would say that maybe we're talking about exactly what we were talking about when people choose a creative advantage, is that people have to experience the pain before they go looking for a solution. And if that is the spam hits the fan and all of a sudden all of our marketing doesn't work anymore, then yeah, no, maybe I'm going to go and look for something different.
Or maybe it's not that all of it's not working, but a significant amount that you are actually losing income coming in because something isn't working. You can't afford to be losing that amount of money because you've got staff to pay. You have bills in other areas and so on. So yes, unfortunately, I think it is right that often the spam is hitting the fan first before most people are thinking they need to make a change. There are fewer companies that are so growth minded that they're saying, look, we're doing so well. Let us think about what are the additional opportunities out there that we can leverage, and especially because everything's clicking right now and the clock is really working. Now that there are companies who are like that, but they are the minority and not the majority.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I mean, people only solve the problems that they have, right? Like there's, and everybody's framing of things is different based on what you've experienced, based on what you know, right? Like you and I could stand here and talk the benefits of the creative advantage all day, but this is probably the first time people have even heard the concept of a creative advantage. So you couldn't have gone and made a bunch of decisions or created your competitive advantage or creative advantage if you didn't know that that concept existed. um, and this is, I think, again, tied into the potential creative advantage for people who are thought leaders and the ones I would consider the real solution providers, right? Actually fixing what is wrong, is that how are we sharing this access with people? And in a world where people will continue to tell you, you just need to have an I help statement and tell people what you do and write it in your tagline on LinkedIn and all of these pieces of quote unquote advice that are maybe not actually that helpful. Like, how would you tell people? How would you get people into that conversation? How would you find the people who have the problems, right? Or have the, I prefer to look at them as challenges. But like, how would you do that? And how Tracy might do that is one way, and how Dr. Karen might do that is a different way. But the point is, there's an opportunity in all of the things that we discussed here to try that on against you and say, like, what do I believe about that? What might I do with that? Do I think this concept of creative advantage is out to lunch? Okay. Even in that process, you are making a decision about what it is that you believe.
Let me share an example. And this is an example of a guest that's on my podcast actually today. We're doing the re airing of the Fab 500, and he was a guest some years ago. And here are some of his distinctives. He has a business degree, and he also, when he was in college, started taking improv classes. And he could have gone strictly into business, having nothing to do with improv. And he was talented enough to be completely in improv, not having anything to do with business. He realized that the real sweet spot for him was to combine the two, which was unique at the time, because he's been in business about probably 30 years now. And he created a company called Business Improv. So he took the skills and abilities of the improv industry to leverage how to work with business leaders on their communication, their engagement, the culture they create, and so on. That's an example of someone having creative advantage because not everybody has that unique set of skills and abilities. And when we take the time to look at, well, what do we have in our hands? We usually have something far more profound than when we're going for the competitive side. And we're now dealing with somebody leveraging their creative advantage, and we're coming from behind. But if you take the time to figure out, well, what do you have? And then use that, you'll be unstoppable.
Oh, I love that too. Also, because we're in this kind of job market where everybody is like, nobody can get a job. Right? But how much of the hiring process and even how we look at ourselves when we're doing the activities of writing a resume or a cover letter is in competition. We're always looking at this as like, okay, there's one job and 300 people have applied for this job. And we don't think about what is the unique flavor that I could bring to this role? And how can I show people that unique flavor? And if they're not going to like that flavor, like if I'm spicy curry and you don't like spicy curry, then you shouldn't hire me because I'm spicy curry. But like, I don't do great with spicy curry. Personally, I love more mild curry. But like, this is the point, is that we haven't even done that our own deep dive into that, whether that is an individual exercise or a team and business exercise. Then what am I showing the world? And what is marketing if not showing the world who you are? Okay.
Yes, and sometimes they won't even make a decision for creative advantage until they see the uniqueness that you are offering. And then they'll say, "Oh, that's interesting. We've never considered that. That could probably help us." So just by sharing who you are, you can inspire people to step up to their next phase.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely true. And we could continue having this conversation, but we are out of time again for today. You can probably bet Dr. Karen will be back at some point in the future because we have all the things to continue talking about. But Dr. Karen, for today, if people are interested in staying in this conversation or exploring the conversation of creative advantage with you, where is the best place for people to find you?
I'm on all the social media channels. LinkedIn is probably best. And you can also reach me at Dr. Karen, Karen, at transleadership.com.
Oh, and I would highly recommend it, folks. If you haven't connected with Dr. Karen, haven't spoken with Dr. Karen, I would highly recommend. It's a great use of your time. So feel free to connect with her. Her LinkedIn is also tagged in the LinkedIn promo for this event. So you can just click on that and find her that way as well. Let her know that you saw her on the show, and she'll just carry on the conversation with you, I have no doubt. Thank you, Dr. Karen, for sharing all your wonderful insight with us again today. I highly appreciate it. I also want to do a special call out to Peter and Farah, who were in the comments today. Thank you so much for getting into the conversation. And remember, folks, if the concept of creative advantage is something that has piqued your interest and you would like to explore it more, please do not let this be the last conversation that you participate in, but the first of many conversations that you participate in. Connect with Dr. Karen, connect with me, connect with each other in the comments, and explore what might the creative advantage look like for you. And I, for one, would be very excited to hear what that is if you want to share it with us. And thank you for taking the opportunity to try that on as an idea that might fit you. Until next time, everybody, permission to do you. Take care.
Thank you, Tracy.